essentially controlled by the federal government, even though that's not official. But I had said a while ago that the last sheriff of Clark County, and the way Clark County is set up, for people that don't know, it's essentially, or at least how it's set up police-wise, how it's policed, that first North Las Vegas and Boulder City are two cities within, I don't know, Boulder City, even though they call themselves a city. Like, I don't know that they're an actual city because they're pretty small, but they have a police department. So North Las Vegas and Boulder City have their own police departments. So I don't believe that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department is responsible for them. And I don't know if they actually report up to the sheriff. So meaning that I assume there's a sheriff for, say, the North Las Vegas Police Department and one for the Boulder City Police Department. And I don't know if, say, they report to the sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, because that's what they're called. But somewhere in the 40s or something, because they used to have the Las Vegas Police Department, and they policed the city of Las Vegas. And as I've talked about before, you have unincorporated Clark County and you have the city of Las Vegas. And unincorporated Clark County is probably bigger than the actual city limits of Las Vegas, which you do not want to get arrested there. I'll just tell you that, for a minor misdemeanor. If you get arrested there for a major misdemeanor, then that's better, actually, than being arrested for a minor misdemeanor, because they have a city attorney and they only prosecute minor cases. So a minor case to them is like a huge thing. So they will not drop it. They will not look at it as ridiculous. They'll, and you have these prosecutors or people in the prosecutor's office that are, of course, trying to make careers for themselves, and they're trying to go out and further their career and maybe move up to the district attorney's office or whatever. So do not get arrested in the city of Las Vegas for anything like that. Otherwise, if it's and I don't think they call them minor and major misdemeanors, but if it's they'll call it a gross misdemeanor. So a gross misdemeanor is fine. It won't go to the city attorney. So that will go to the actual district attorney. So if it's a gross misdemeanor, usually the district attorney, well, I don't know about usually. I just know in my case that they actually did drop it. I was kind of surprised. Or not drop it, but they said, we're not even going to prosecute this case. We're not filing charges. This is ridiculous. He didn't commit a crime. But if it was the city attorney, of course, they would have done that. But back, I'm either thinking it's the 40s or the 60s. It might be the 40s, but it may have been the 60s. But what they did was, so they had the sheriff's office, which I believe then was responsible for all of unincorporated Clark County. So they had the Clark County Sheriff's Department, and then they had the Las Vegas Police Department. And then I don't know at what point North Las Vegas became a city and Boulder City became a city, but I'm sure they were cities back then and probably set up the same way. But what happened was they merged the Las Vegas Police Department with the Clark County Sheriff's Office to form the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, which jurisdiction is essentially all of Clark County except for those two places I mentioned, North Las Vegas and Boulder City. And and Henderson is the other place as well. But again, I don't know what the if they report to anybody in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. They may or they may not. They may have nothing to do with them. But when it comes to money, like I talked about before, them finally upping the sales tax to hire more police, I think some of that money also went to those jurisdictions, those cities. But anyway, the former sheriff, who's a fucking douchebag, Gillespie, he was out, I believe, 2014. He didn't run again, so I believe the new sheriff took over in January. So he was he won Sheriff of the Year. And this is all over the country. This includes all sheriffs all over the country for some sheriff's award. I don't remember the exact name of the award, but I had posted the article back when I saw it because I looked at it, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department was investigated by the FBI for their practices and all of these things that they were doing. And this guy's just a douchebag. And he sounds like a fucking moron. He sounds like he has this very thick Midwest Chicago accent. He sounds like if you've ever seen the movie with the Chris Farley movie, I think it was Black Sheep, the one where he sold the auto parts and his dad died, and the guy who was trying to buy him out, Dan Aykroyd, within the movie did a Chicago Midwestern accent, and it was kind of like that's how he sounds. He sounds like a fucking idiot. Anyway, the reason that they gave for giving him the award had to do with working closely with Homeland Security, and I don't know if they mentioned the NSA. But that was the main reason that he won, because of his working with Homeland Security. And I would have thought that after he left, and it's only been a year, and maybe he does, and we just don't know about it, that he would have got some job with the federal government. And maybe he does have one, and we just don't know it. But I don't know how old he was. I mean, he could have retired with a big, huge pension. I know he worked at least 20 years, over 20 years for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, so they can retire after 20 years anyway. And, of course, being a sheriff as well, he probably has a pretty big pension. So he might have just retired and said, fuck it. But he may be some kind of consultant or something like that to the federal government, or, who knows what he's doing. But I would think that he did a lot of that for a reason and maybe expected something in return. Obama had meetings of sheriffs across the country. And you think about that. Why would the president be meeting with sheriffs? Why should the president be? I mean, is that something that the president should be doing? The president should be having meetings with sheriffs across the country. So it's another one of those things that you see, and we'll kind of get to this, but I've talked about it before, them trying to federalize the police, and they've talked about this too, and that gives the federal government a fucking army within the United States. And they've been training them, giving them weapons, and everybody pretty much knows about that. If you don't know about it, you need to wake up, because they're riding around in fucking tanks. They have automatic weapons, and they're all trained by the federal government and by places like the I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's the place that labels like basically everybody a terrorist, and they're not a government agency. They just go around labeling groups, terrorist groups, and that's what they do. And I can't think of their name right now. They're like the Anti-Defamation League, but it's another group that's similar to them, but they work with the federal government. So we'll get to that, because that's definitely something. I mean, if you believe in freedom and liberty, how do you not see what's going on with that and the police? Not just from the police, getting away with killing people and beating people and all of these things, but the structure and how the federal government is trying to turn them into a military force, that their plans are to federalize at some point to give them a federal army. And that's why I always say that they're putting the infrastructure in place. And once they're done with that, I think they'll move forward. It depends. I mean, they may continue to try to move forward slowly, even though it's not as slow as I think it used to be. I think they're speeding up a lot of things, but they may continue at the same pace. Or once they officially federalize the police, things may totally change in like a year. I mean, I don't know. There's all these things going on that you just can really only speculate on. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Now, we know why they're saying they're doing it, but it's obvious in most of these cases that it's bullshit, that they're just exploiting it and saying, oh, well, we're doing it because of this, and they're really doing it because of some other reason. And we see that a lot with, like I said, politicians, agencies, whatever, that they exploit whatever goes on, and they're going to do what's best for themselves and what's best to meet their goals, make money, advance their careers. And of course, at the same time, to do that is to take more control over people's lives and to ultimately control every aspect of your life. And again, that's to me the definition of a government. So we have everything going on in the U.S., all of these things like the police murders, the upping of security because of what went on in France, rights being taken away right and left. Yesterday I did a show about kids having no rights. You have the CPS getting involved in people's lives just based on anonymous phone calls. You have all these things that are going on here. Now, they're focusing on the Middle East, but which do you really think is more of a threat to you personally or your life personally? Do you really think what's going on in the Middle East and ISIS is really more of a threat? So what I did was I looked up how many people were killed by terrorists and how many people were actually killed by other things. So there's a list of causes of death that I have. And essentially, there's a list of terrorist attacks and the supposedly amount of people that died in terrorist attacks. And it's just by region. I couldn't even get the U.S. So I think the U.S. is 0, but this is for 2013. North America as a whole is 21. Now, I don't know what they're counting, in that.